Okay. My name is Jennifer McClure, and I'm the Assistant Director for Marketing in the Department of Student Housing.
Okay. Has there been an increase in requests for new roommates or transfers this year from last year?
Yes, there have been an increase in requests for roommates to be connected. I think part of that is a result of some improvements we've made in the actual housing application for roommate searching, looking for roommates who match you as far as living preferences go. And also this past year we included the ability to connect with other students through Facebook. So that has increased the connections that people make, and as a result, the number of requests that we get.
Are you able to accommodate all of the room swaps?
We are. For the most part, there's a transition time that after students room select, some of them are changing into communities they've been accepted to. Some students come for orientation and find roommates. So they put themselves in a room on their own, and then find somebody they want to live with. So there's a lot of transition during that time where room swap is open. So most students can end up where they want to be, utilizing room swap.
How do you cope with all of the students who want to switch or swap rooms throughout the year?
We have a period. It's usually a few weeks or a month in where we allow open room changes. Students can just submit the request through their graduate community director in the hall, and we accommodate those requests just if they found someone they prefer to live with, or they decided they want to be in a different building or something like that. If there are specific situations that require attention, we take those on a case-by-case basis throughout the year. If they're serious roommate issues that cannot be resolved while the students still live in the room, or other things, reasons that students may need to move.
If two roommates cannot get along and they both want a new roommate, how do you decide who stays and who has to move?
That's a case. It's kind of a case-by-case basis. There's no rule. Usually we're able to work things out by finding another space, just in general, just they can both go to another one and we free that room up. Or we try to find, work with the roommates individually together to find a way to mutually resolve the situation. If they have found other roommates who are able to live with them, then there has to be some other, freeing up in the system that's going on. So usually we can switch them around. They may, it may be, to be fair in the end, that neither of them stays in the room, but we try to really work something out so that everyone's comfortable and feels good about the situation.
What is the best advice you can give for two roommates who aren't getting along but neither can move out?
Well, I think the first thing that's very important is that they have the roommate agreement. We put that online this year and really gave more attention to assisting students in developing this contract of living in a room. Most students growing up had their own bedrooms, or at least their own spaces that were generally larger than that. And so living in those circumstances, you have to kind of develop rules of the house, even in just a room. So starting there, if students didn't do a roommate agreement, then it's time to create one, because that may resolve the issues that have led to the point where they feel like they can no longer live together when they both want out. The next thing, which is part of the roommate agreement, is just talking, in a non-confrontational way about what's going on in the room and how you can work things out. The community assistant is available to help with these discussions, and they're trained to help with these discussions. A big part of their training is, for their job, is helping people live together in small spaces. That's really what it is. And, they're doing that at the same time that they're transitioning to living on their own and into college. So it's just a lot of changes going on at once. And then also, above that, our graduate community directors are very well trained and educated in assisting students in these types of events. So we have a great support system for helping those students who find themselves in those situations. So, whether it's scheduling, finding things to do together, finding things to do apart, there are ways to work around that, because the lesson that's learned from living with people you'd rather not live with, if that ends up being your situation, we hope it's not. But, all of your life you're going to have to work with people and maybe even live with people. You never know where your life is going to take you. And so the skills that you gain from being in that situation for 9 months out of 1 year of your life are really invaluable. So at the very end, we encourage students to try to make the most of any situation and look at what you can learn from it.
Do you think that the roommate questionnaire really pairs roommates well, or do you think it is flawed?
Well, I don't think you can ever have a perfect questionnaire when you're using a Likert scale or even a modified Likert scale. There are always going to be things that are crucial to one student, who they may think is important, not as important to another student. But we try to find the things that are important to all students and include those things, because we realize that leaves some gaps in information about what people may want to know when they're going to live with someone. We provide that connection for Facebook. Also, students are on there by their Ole Miss user IDs. That's your email address. So there are ways to connect to get the information you as an individual need to make your decision about who you're going to live with.
Do you have any examples of roommates that worked it out and became great friends even after a rocky start?
Yeah, I mean, how many do you want? There are thousands of those stories. If students are willing to be open-minded, they can surprise themselves. We have, students, for example, who live in our communities, like when we started our freshman interest groups and living learning communities last year. And, a lot of those students already had roommates and made the decision to choose the community over a specific roommate in a traditional hall. And some of them, it was a difficult transition because they were going from living with students they had known and had a roommate they had in mind to living with students in a brand new hall, in a brand new community that they, hadn't met before. And so many of those students have said that was the greatest experience. It prepared me for what I need to do later on. Of course, there were conflicts along the way. Of course, there were lifestyle differences, sleeping preferences, and just general. Is this someone that you can get along with? Is it not? But the students who are looking at it from a perspective of, I'm at the university to not only get an academic education, but also an education in life to prepare me to live an independent, successful, productive life as an adult. I think that those students obviously feel like they gain the most from it, and those are where we get our success stories. Some of these students who, were thinking about transferring, wanted to leave after first semester, having that support system, and these were, strangers for roommates, but just having that community, which, community can develop on any floor in any hall, but having that helped give them reasons to stay and made them want to stay. And some of them, are now officers in student organizations. They work as community assistants for our department. It really kind of launched them into success as a student, both academically and in life.
Describe the worst roommate disaster you can think of.
Okay, my own. I came to Ole Miss as a freshman. I lived in Martin Hall. And although I was advised not to, I lived with my best friend from home. We lasted a month. And the only reason, and the room change policy was a little bit different then, but it worked out. She just moved into the room next door because it was a triple and they only had, one other roommate. But we were such good friends. We stayed at each other's house every weekend. We did lots of activities together. I mean, we were together all the time. But what we didn't think about and what we didn't discuss was, how are we going to live in this small room together, eat, sleep, breathe, study, do everything in this room, and get along. Having those candid conversations could have saved, our roommate situation and could have saved our friendship, because that's someone I grew up with, and the negative effects have proved to be long lasting. But you know, the reasons that we didn't get along were the basic roommate reasons. We had class at different times. We wanted to sleep at different times. We felt differently about having people in the room and what times people should be in the room. We felt differently about checking in with each other. We felt differently about, you know, back then we had landlines in our rooms, so you have the whole phone and answering machine issue. So, you know, there were messages and all. It was a little bit different then. So, you know, but that could have been prevented. And it's a shame that we didn't take the steps to prevent that. So that's the most disastrous one because I lived it.
Thank you.
Sure.